Well, hey there, guys, gals, and non-binary pals, and welcome to Smite Too Long Didn't Watch, your one-stop shop for all things Smite 2 Founders Series. My name is Gormizer. Joining me back on that TV is Malum. He'll come in later and slam a few regions, honestly. But right next to me, I got Trelly, I got J-Mac, and I got you hanging out and watching as we do that thing I just said. Recap what happened last week, look at what happened this week. Smile.
Well, we kind of like look forward to what will happen this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we
look at what happened this week so far.
We
nothing.
divine what will happen this week.
Yeah, we will let you know once we figure it out.
Yeah. We've got several regions still going, by the way, for those of you who are unaware and maybe uninitiated. The Founder Series is going in LATAM, in Brazil, in APAC, in NA, in EMEA, which, as you can imagine, that's a lot of Smite to watch. The whole point of this is to let you know what you missed and succinctly put it
condensed,
so you don't have to watch. Because I would imagine if it's happening 2 days a week, right, Saturday and Sunday, but across several regions, some of them are only one day, but like you have probably 6 days worth of stuff you have to watch.
Yep. We
put that into not 6 days worth of things, into like this much things. And Trelly, you're going to start with EMEA.
Absolutely am. EMEA was quite the weekend, of course, and we can go ahead and check out the schedule first and foremost, just so we all understand.
Oh yeah, this is I believe for this week. Yeah.
Yeah, because
who's playing and what they're doing.
Well, first of all, something to note: all matchups are going to be. If you win, you go on. If you lose, you go down. We're all 2-2 this week, all right? So there are three matchups in EMEA.
Smite 2.
Yeah, and 3 squads in NA it's do or die time for all of these squads. Of course, the ones that I covered are on the left side of your screen. We got Smokebreak versus Titans Reloaded, Bill's Goons versus DDK, and Tythonic versus Threat Level Midnight. All of which you want to keep your eyes on. We can go over prediction for those and things after my Yap session. But, of course,
Yap sesh.
J-Mac, your matches are on the right if you want to talk about any of those real quick, because I don't know if we're going to bring the schedule back up.
Yeah, really this week being the 2-2, it's kind of keeping an eye on the teams that we maybe would have thought would have already kind of made their way. Like, you look down at this one, we see Borscht immediately. That's a team I'm saying.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Man, these guys should have already been qualified, but had a couple of rough matches maybe earlier in their bracket to kind of put them to this point. So this is really kind of the final proving ground for some of these teams, especially for teams that we've been saying, week after week, they could do this. They could make it. They're almost there. All they got to do is, maybe win that one more, maybe just prove themselves a little bit more.
One more.
This is the week now, because if you lose this one, you drop down, you have to play against all the teams that qualify upward from the open bracket as well. And if you win, well, you get a couple of weeks off to kind of watch the competition and see how the meta evolves.
I'm really excited to watch. I feel like Borscht comes up in NA because, like you said, it feels like one of those teams where you're like, wait, really? Those guys? Smokebreak, I feel like, is in a very similar conversation because they climbed to the top. Didn't they?
They were second seed.
They were, yeah. And so they have been, and we'll probably see this when we look at the entire EMEA bracket. But like they got to the pinnacle, and then it's just again rough matches put them here.
Exactly, and that's the thing. You have to be able to perform in every single week. You got to be able to get those 3 wins, which is what every single team is fighting for from now on out. Again, 3 teams left. Well, 6 teams left. 3 to qualify, 3 to drop down and have to fight their way through in their last chance qualifiers. But, so last week, just so we're clear, Squirps, Yodi Gang, Mockingbird, all gone. You know what? Let's just look at the bracket and make it a lot easier for everyone involved. Being a visual learner is nice. So you can see what Gore was talking about. Smokebreak climbs all the way to the top in the 2-0 section, gets 2-0'd by Team Risk. That's understandable. They're the #1 team for a reason. But then, if you look again, get 2-0'd by Mockingbird. That may have been the question mark for a lot of these guys. That's what was last week. So that's why we see Smokebreak here in the 2-2 section. Squirps, of course, 2-0 Bill's Goons. No problem there for them. But maybe a surprise to some people, Yodi Gang and Tythonic end up going 3. That's a set that I do have a little bit to cover on, just because Tythonic bringing Yodi Gang to 3 shows, just some promise from them for sure. There, of course, is also 3 teams that were in the 1 and 2 section that moved on, and that would be DDK, Titans Reloaded, and Threat Level Midnight. And something to bring up, and something that I put here that is just, always, in my opinion, always very important is coming off of a 2-0 week is a lot better than coming off of an 0-2 week.
Oh, for sure.
Even if you're down in the 1-2 section fighting for your life, threat level Midnight is going to feel a lot better than SMITEPro did just mentally, right? You just 2-0'd last weekend. You're coming in strong. You realize, hey, these guys have already lost twice. Their mental might be a little bit bad. We've got some heat going, right? We've got some motion. So that's something that has to be considered. Just because SMITEPro came in second seed of this tournament, they are on do or die time up against Titans Reloaded. So definitely keep that in mind when you're watching some of these matchups. But yeah, my first clip is, of course, a clip of Tythonic versus Yodi Gang. Again, ended up falling down, but they brought Yodi Gang to 3, and that's a team that me and JMac have both covered EMEA many times now, and we keep bringing this squad up because we feel as if they could easily be in that top 4, maybe top 6 section. Now would be the time to prove it. You can see Tythonic has quite the lead here. Gold-wise, they're up by about 5K, and this was game number 1, so we unfortunately know how it ends, but just a great scrap and just, playing their leads very well, which I think becomes extremely important, right? How many teams have we seen so far in this event where they have a lead, but they can't close it out, right? They get a lead against what would be considered a better team, and they just can't close it out. Tythonic was able to do it at least once against a squad like Yodi Gang, so I just think they should be able to put up a good fight against threat level Midnight this week. So definitely a matchup that you want to watch out for because, again, winner qualifies. So that's going to be a big deal. Next up, unfortunately, Bills Goons, they were up against the Squirps, and it was pretty one-sided this time around. This is kind of one of those matchups where your confidence might be feeling a little rough, all things considered. You're up against Squirp, sure, they look great, and they're a team that are definitely a threat, but it just didn't really seem like it was ever that close for me, for Bills Goons. This is you're always going to favor a squad like the Squirps in this matchup, but I was hoping that taking a loss like this up against Squirps doesn't kill your confidence for this week. So I think Bills Goons, we recognize a lot of these guys. We've been seeing them play for quite some time. I hope they still have that level of confidence going into this week, just because they, had to go up against a tough opponent. And, of course, just getting blown out of the water here. It's very rare that you see the F6 vote thrown up. So
yeah,
I brought this up just to say I hope that they still bring that level of intensity this weekend, because they can certainly compete at this level. Just because they got, kind of blown out of the water last weekend does not mean that they cannot compete. I think they should feel confident, giving their matchup this weekend. But last up, we got SMITEPro versus Mockingbird. Now, this was the big question mark for a lot of people. SMITEPro went through a little bit of just gameplay drama in general. Haven't really been able to see them at their peak form for quite some time. So that's my question to you guys. Do you think that they look lost? Because just watching their matchup in general, I did not see them performing at peak levels that we expect from them. Against Mockingbird in particular, Calvin just put on a show here. It did not seem like SMITEPro really had an answer for him.
I remember being distinctly confused because I think I was on this set, and this was one that I remember expecting to go 3,
Yep.
and I was so certain of it in my mind, and I kind of expected it to be like SMITEPro up 1, then Mockingbird, then SMITEPro win it. That's just in my brain, based on names and what I've seen these teams do. Like you said, Calvin in here, the entire team, and it's really worth mentioning because I think Spud we talked about during the cast a lot.
Yep.
There were so many times where Jingwei just not doing anything,
Yep.
very, very silent, which is not bad in game. And then would just show up towards the end and be like, all right, cool. Crit, cool. Just showered in kills, blood everywhere,
Yep.
massacred, and then they won.
Yeah. So that was another point that I wanted to bring up, just the fact that they looked a little bit lost to me last week. And the Mockingbird's a great team, of course, and props to them for qualifying. But you gotta kind of have a short memory for a lot of this. So again, if you lost last weekend's matchup, I feel like you're feeling a little bit worse than the guys that were in the lower end of the bracket that want to get here. That builds a level of confidence. They probably go into scrims pretty hyped off of a win. Just things to consider going into this weekend. But again, we have SMITEPro versus Titans Reloaded. I still favor SMITEPro in that matchup for my prediction. I still think that it's going to lean towards them. But of course, Titans Reloaded should be feeling good. We have Bills Goons versus DDK. This one is close. This one is definitely close, but I'm leaning more towards Bills Goons. And I know that may be a hot take. I'm not sure, but I think that because they F6 that matchup in particular, I'm like, maybe they just wanted to save their mental, right? Like, maybe like, this is done. What's the point of floundering in this matchup? Let's just get locked in and get this 2-2 matchup next weekend and qualify. That's what it gave to me. It could just be like, we've given up mentally. That could have been what it was. But I think it was more so like, this is done. We're gonna forfeit this one. We're gonna lock in next weekend. And then last up, of course, was Tythonic versus Threat Level Midnight, and you got to go for Tythonic on that one. But still, could be close. Again, there's a difference between coming off a loss, coming off a win. That's something that I think is going to be a theme here. And I hope, regardless, all of these matchups are going to be good. I don't even have to say that I hope that, because again, everything's on the line here. You don't have the losers bracket to fall into. This is just like, you want to go to playoffs, now is the time. Otherwise, you're going to have to fight your way back again next weekend. So should be an absolute banger.
A loss this week means 2 extra weeks of having to work to then get to 2 more weeks of having to work to try and come to LAN 3 weeks later or something like that. Like it is, a little more pressure just all around. Plus the last chance qualifier is going to be difficult. Like, it's not going to be easy. You're going to be getting teams as well, like some from like the open bracket that you just like, hey, I don't have any information on those guys. And so that's going to surprise, I think, everybody involved down there, so it's going to be really fun.
But notably, this is the 1 week where we actually get to watch everything, right?
Yeah.
So there's no matchups that you will
3
miss.
sets Saturday. Oh yeah, I should mention that. That's actually a really good point.
Go ahead, this guy.
We're going to be doing 3 sets because there's literally 6 matchups, right? 3 in EMEA, 3 in NA. On our broadcast, the Saturday broadcast is going to be 2 EMEA sets into 1 NA set. It starts at 11 a.m. Eastern. Which is the normal start time we've been doing over the last little bit. So that's, you're going to see again on the left, the Saturday 11, Saturday 1 will be 2 EMEA, and then Saturday 3 p.m. will be the one name in progress versus first name Zach from North America. Sunday, worth mentioning, is starting at 1 p.m. It'll be 1 EMEA match into 2 NA matches. So that's when Tythonic Threat Level Midnight is going to kick off. But just to make sure that you know up ahead of time and that I get that out there now, Sunday is going to be starting 2 hours later than we have been for the last few weeks. And it's just because there's only 3 matches. We're accommodating the North American players. And that, as long as maybe I shouldn't say it, but I'm pretty certain is the last time that we're going to be doing anything that's kind of shifted that way for a little while, maybe probably until like finals of the whole kit and caboodle, because it's such a long way away. So Sunday, just make sure that you're showing up a couple hours later than normal, and you'll see the same old SMITE action.
Yep, but that was EMEA again. Only 6 teams to look at, only 3 matchups that we're worried about, but they're going to be bangers nonetheless. Let's hear about that NA thing's all about. I don't even know.
What's been going on over there?
Yeah. Things and stuff happened over in NA, and we can actually take a look at the bracket. This week, probably not a whole lot of surprises, I would say, when you kind of look down the list. Food Drive for Globe, a team that was already expected to have probably made it by this point, did find their success against Name in Progress. Secret Service and First Name Zach, kind of the more maybe unknown between those kind of top 3s on some of the players, maybe the lesser known. And then Scrumptious getting there, went over Gars Goblins. Maybe no surprise for those out there if you look at just the level of competitive history between the 2 teams out there. And then down over in the lower bracket, the only of these matches that there really isn't anything to talk about because the match just didn't happen because there's a forfeit was the Mr. Play-by-Play versus Employment LARPers. Employment LARPers decided they didn't want to play out their match, so Mr. Play-by-Play gets the win to jump up in there. I want to briefly talk about Borscht in a little bit, and I'm going to bring that up, kind of moving into their matchup, and then Look Within finding themselves their 2-0 against We Got Baking Soda, which is also a funny name, and I always somehow manage to misspell baking to be backing whenever I'm typing it up on my spreadsheet, so there's a little bit of inside lore there. But looking at the matches for this week, I think that the first and third of these matchups are maybe the more interesting to kind of dissect in there. I mean, you look at Borscht and Mr. Play-by-Play, this should just be kind of one that already moves forward, but I think that the Garf's matchup versus Look Within is one that I'm definitely keeping on, and one that was kind of hard for me to determine who I might be able to predict coming on top of this one, because with Garf's Goblins, when you kind of watch the track record of this team and their opposition Look Within, it's kind of funny. I was watching okay, which weeks did they win, which weeks did they lose? They're exact opposites. Garf's wins week 1, Look Within loses week 1, and then whoever had that in their first week of success, it was a loss the other way. So it was a 1-0 and an 0-1 into 1-1s, and then a 2-1, 1-2, and then now they're meeting back up in 2-2. So it's been like a little zigzag for both these two teams across. But maybe for Gars Goblins, just kind of getting some bad matchups for themselves. Having to face off against Scrumptious is not an easy task, considering that Scrumptious was technically the number 1 seed coming into at least this phase of play. So for Gars Goblins, and we've said it time and time again, and this is now really the final moment for this team where they kind of have to prove themselves. Their match against Scrumptious was tough. It was not an easy matchup for these guys. Scrumptious have been playing Smite 1 for a long time. All of them jump over to Smite 2, and they're a strong team. But there were some signs of life with Gars Goblins throughout all their matchups, and even through this Scrumptious match. I think that when I look at Gars Goblins, it's got to just kind of be culminating together and finding a win condition that really isn't just Sun Prodigy, because if Sun Prod is having a bad game, you kind of feel it ripple through the rest of the team. You'll have moments where, like, Des is kind of popping off over there, or in the very early stages, we were talking about Lord Garfield over in the Soul Lands. Like, this guy is just going absolutely crazy. He's unkillable. But teams have found ways to shut down Lord Garfield, and they've found ways to shut down Sun Prod, and so it kind of starts to ripple through the rest of the team. So I think for Garfs, who struggled against Scrumptious, this matchup versus Look Within will probably be a little bit better for them, but it's still going to be a tough one. And kind of in this first clip is maybe one thing that works out really well for Garfs is, even despite being down so far, they're still able to at least have some solid defenses against Scrumptious. They're able to make some big plays for themselves, but it's really going to come down to just how is Gars Goblins really going to pull together whenever it really comes down to the thick of it in this last week? Are they going to be able to get picks that work out really well for Sun Prod? Is Des really going to be able to kind of have his pop-off moment? You can actually see that Des is shortly about to come off respawn at Anubis, and we've seen just how good Anubis has been and is able to make a really solid base defense because of it. Maybe this is Scrumptious being a little overzealous and going for their end, maybe kind of playing with their food a little too long. But against teams like this, against teams that are a little bit scrappier in nature like Gars Goblins, you can't mess around too long, because eventually they're going to be able to find a hole and be able to find their way to get some level of success. And then when you take two teams that are both like that, and both, we'll say, not at top tier level, but kind of that mid tier level, when you get two teams that can make mistakes and maybe capitalize off a mistake like that, it can make the matchup really close. So I think with them versus Name in Progress for this upcoming week is a really tough one to kind of determine exactly where they're going to line out. I kind of wrote down initially in my prediction a 2-1, but that's just because these teams are both so opposite yet so similar in nature with themselves for them and Look Within. So I'm going to be really interested in that matchup. For the second one, this was maybe a bit of kind of unfortunate moment for for First Name Zach, who's the next matchup to kind of talk about with them in Name in Progress, where First Name Zach just kind of got owned a little bit this week. I think it's criminal if I don't mention that we had our first pentakill pop up in competitive this past weekend. Shinfu able to get himself a penta, which I had to bring the clip for that one. There's just no reason not to. But First Name Zach kind of struggled a little bit up until this point, and I think that if this team can clean it up, players like Hexen, I think that Vampora as well have really shown that they've got the capabilities to really lead the charge for this team. Nex has also been making great plays on the matchup. This is just an unfortunate matchup for them where Secret Service got a little too far ahead. The Morgan is also kind of just really good, especially when you can get ahead and also get your Loki ahead, and you can just constantly double Loki across the middle of battles. And this was a penta that I think surprised everybody, even the casters. You even hear Dave go, wait, hold on, there was a pentakill. What even happened there? And it's just because this Morgan has really kind of cemented themselves as, I would say, a top-tier mid laner right now. And it's not like Hecate fell off or Neath fell off or anything like that. It's just that more and more players are starting to kind of unlock that potential of what the Morgan can do. And I think plays like this from Hexen really show what Patience in the solo lane can do for themselves. And I also think it's a strong highlight as to how good Odin can be and has been, and why we've been seeing Odin be such a top ban priority. Well, one of the things that we kind of saw all throughout this last week and all throughout any time that Baron Samedi has been available is that Baron's just been banned. He had a 100% pick ban rate in his first week in competitive play, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, all but one game had pick and ban in this last week as well. So the question then comes with really any team that's out there is Baron going to be allowed to get through? what role is Baron going to play? Because we've seen him solo, we've seen him mid, we've seen him support. It feels like you can play him in multiple roles to all varying degrees of success, and a lot more often than not has been pretty good for Baron. So I'm curious to see if any of these teams get through, if there's been any kind of counter strategy that has gone against the Baron right now, because it really just feels like, if there's a team that's got a lot of healing, you draft up an Odin. Odin has kind of been the top pick, so maybe that's kind of the answer to it. We'll kind of have to see maybe as time goes on for them. But for First Name Zach versus Name in Progress, this is kind of a tough one. I think that First Name Zach have a little bit more to prove than their opponents in Name in Progress, because when you look at the track record for Name in Progress, they started out 2-0. They made it all the way to that potential qualifier, and then they unfortunately ran into a massive brick wall that was Cowabunga, and they lose to Cowabunga, and then they've got to play against Food Drive for Globe the next week after, which is another top team. So it's been at least a tough last couple of weeks for Name in Progress, but I think that their matchup against Food Drive was a little bit closer, especially given that they had to go against Cowabunga. So I think the Name in Progress have a lot of potential to be one of those teams to qualify in, but I think with First Name Zach, if they can kind of get the drafting phase down and kind of pull themselves together throughout the rest of it, this team can easily probably try and find some success and find themselves a qualification. And the last matchup, I don't want to spend too much time talking about, one, because Mr. Play-by-Play didn't have any clips from this past week. They were one of the off-air matches, and the match got forfeit, so there was nothing happening between them and Employment LARPers. It's the other side that they had to face, which is Borscht. And I'm going to not mince words at all with this one. They trolled a little bit this week. And maybe it's more than just a little bit. These guys trolled against APAC Club. So much so that there was a moment where people were thinking that we might be seeing a Game 3. Borscht dominated Game 1, wasn't even close, wiped the board clean, move on to Game 2. What does Borscht do? First 10, 15 minutes, they're absolutely owning everything. They're going absolutely crazy. And then for the next 21 minutes of the game, they spent trolling. It's Pagon not grouping up with the team, farming gold rogue camp in solo while the team is trying to push in dual lane. It's Pagon doing a buff camp while the rest of the team is trying to group up to siege towers or fire. It's everybody just on different pages and everybody just trying to make their own highlight hero plays. I mean, you see so many times where Rat Milk is solo diving as a Thanatos to try and go for kills and just getting absolutely decimated by it. So much so that, like I said, people were wondering, is APAC Club going to pull this one through? Like, are they just going to turn around and win? I mean, there's a point where, like, an Athena was like 0-12 or something like that, and then they end out with, a few extra kills to their name because of it. They get some good assists that go their direction. There was some potential there for APAC Club. Unfortunately, they're out. So my word for Borscht this week is, I know that you probably think you've got this one in the bag, but you can probably just play it a little bit cleaner and not worry about the potential risk of losing that qualification spot. I mean, this is a team that probably should have already been qualified. We've talked about how strong this team is. You look at the players down it is all world caliber players. And not to say, when I say and Rat Milk, it's not to say that he's not. It's just that Rat Milk has never been at a chance to go to the World Championships. But this is a strong team. This is a team with a lot of really good mechanical players to it. But you don't want to mess around in the last week. You don't want to risk potentially not qualifying to the playoffs. You want to lock in, like, you want to lock down, and you want to find the win this week. So for my prediction with the Borscht versus Play-by-Play, this one should just go to Borscht. I just like to see it maybe a little bit cleaner this week, because I think that you had your fun, you kind of messed around, but there comes a time where maybe either it's the players or the fans or casters where they're just like, is this game gonna end? Are they gonna win this game finally? Are they gonna are they gonna group up and actually get something going? So I think that Borscht can easily qualify. It's just a matter of how long do they want to take to do that this week comparatively. And like I said, for the other two matchups there, I think that Name in Progress has a lot going for them. And for Gars Goblins, I give them the slight edge over Look Within just because they have some very hard carry potential. But we've seen what happens when Gars Goblins loses some of their top picks. So I think that the draft is going to be very important for that set in particular to see where is Dest going, what is Lord Garfield going to play, and what Sun Prodigy going to get in that jungle.
I know there's, like you said, some that are interesting. Like Trelly had mentioned, though, same for NA. Everyone's 2-2. Mm-hmm. You win, you go to playoffs. You lose, you go to the last chance qualifiers, which doesn't necessarily mean you're out. Grand scheme, you go to stage 3. If you lose, you go to stage 4. If you win, and you can still get to stage 4 from stage 3. You just got to do a lot more Smite to be able to get there. Whereas everybody else that has already won or will win, let's say tomorrow or Sunday, kind of gets a nice little break for a couple weeks before playoffs kick off. Once we get to playoffs, it becomes an incredibly different story as well, because it's double elim bracket, but once you're out, you're out. Like if you're done there, you're donezo.
That's it.
And then I believe that's when we start whittling things down. We get 3 guys from EMEA, 3 from NA, and 2. Oh man, where could they possibly come from? Well, they come from one of our other regions, which just means it's the perfect time to bring in Malum so we can find out about said other regions.
And
here.
Yep.
What's
I knew it
right here?
There he is.
I got it. Yeah.
You're
right on cue. Slid in.
Also, your pop filter for your mic almost kind of matches the shirt.
Softest thing in the world.
It looks
too.
really
Oh my
soft.
God. I've had this problem where I find myself when I'm kind of like zoning out, I start leaning, kind of rubbing on it like a cat, and I'm like, can't do that, you know.
Yeah.
They gotta lock in, but it's
Those
just
things,
so soft.
hey, I'm gonna tell you,
vibes immaculate.
These things get real gross. There's a lot of stuff that's in this
That's
area.
why I got this one.
That
I
comes
replaced
out
my
that
old
way.
one. Exactly. Man, you said it. You guys had a lot to talk about with the main regions we've covered on broadcast,
Yeah.
but when I tell you that this might be the most, I want to say tiresome, but the most information-heavy week that I've had to pile through, because while there was lesser games than there has been, in particular for Brazil and in LATAM, there was way more going on. And when it comes to APAC, I'll get to them in a second. They had a roster apocalypse.
Those
They had
guys.
drama. Like, I think I counted that there was 17 different roster changes for APAC with playoffs around the corner. They're coming up on week 5 now. So we'll end with APAC. But let's start with LATAM and Brazil. LATAM, I've been starting with a lot because 2 teams from LATAM we will see try to play into the Founder Series, try to make their way to Vegas and see what they can do there. And Los Leal and Team Malibu have been the 2 teams at the very top of the bracket every single week. And for viewers at home, if you remember how the early open bracket worked for North America and for EMEA, it's identical in how it's been working.
Yeah.
Which means at this point, you basically have teams that are locks, which has caused some teams to say, all right, well, we're good this week. We played our way out. We're done with it. One of those teams was actually Los Leal, who entered the Brazil bracket and competed there. And I'll talk about that in a second. But what that did for LATAM was it opened up the door for a new matchup. And we had one single matchup, which ended up being basically grand finals, so one best of 3 set between Team Juan and Team Malibu, which very surprising, but very exciting because it gave them both a chance to flex their muscles. And while I've mentioned Team Malibu and Los Leal they're beyond the favorites so far for LATAM. Team Juan has been that 3rd place trying to fight their way through. I think I even talked about that last week. That's my too long, didn't watch. So for Juan to get experience against Malibu felt great. And shout out to Piku and Danny who were casting this week in the sewer for the clip, but you'll hear here, Piku is even talking about it. He's saying they really want the Odin. He says Team Juan have a problem with the Nordic Pantheon as they're chasing down Odin because of how hard they're committing. But then they realize on the map what Team Malibu is doing. And this is, I mean, you see the scoreboard 30-3, not looking great, but Team Malibu is just on a different level.
I'm actually kind of, I'm actively rooting for Team Juan to get a single kill.
Yeah.
Like just right here, that Fenrir, he's pretty low.
It's like Trelly and I during Borscht and LK Club. We started rooting for LK Club. And the commentary here is great. I gotta shout it out where Piku starts really popping off. I think Cuckoo's blowing them away, blows another away, and they were both so excited. It was the first time I got to hear Danny cast and got to hear a lot of Piku doing play-by-play. So again, Smite in the sewer, they've been covering off-air games. They covered LATAM this previous weekend, Piku and Danny. And what's cool is they also covered Brazil, so we'll hear them again in a second. They were casting in Spanish, but some Brazil coverage with casters. How exciting can you get? But yeah, Los Leal, still a favorite points-wise. They've more than secured themselves a spot at the moment, I believe, with how LATAM is shaping up. But Team Juan, close 3rd, and Team Malibu, they're looking strong. That battle of Los Leal and Malibu, again, the main question becomes how will they handle NA and EMEA teams? But that brings us to Brazil, where, again, Los Leal played. Brazil was a bit more filled of a bracket, so that's pretty exciting. One interesting note I wanted to make, this was like literally seconds before we went live with SMITE Too Long Didn't Watch. So a couple players from Brazil are looking at, it looks like a roster apocalypse might happen for LATAM as well, where some players from Brazil are talking with LATAM teams. I know I don't want to leak it, but I might be leaking it, that Power ST2, who's a really talented mid laner, is looking at joining Team Kamikaze in LATAM, so they might be making a comeback. So with a couple of weeks left, could be some big changes there. But Power has been playing in Brazil, and Bruto X Fire AMV, amazing team name. Yet again, last week they won. They had the surprise victory, but Los Lille entered from LATAM, and well, Los Lille, they're still Los Lille even when they're playing in the Brazil bracket. They brought it to Bruto X Fire and were able to take them down. Here's a clip from the end of that, which was so exciting. I'll let the casting play out for this one for sure.
Tiene que correr ahora el support del equipo de Bruno. Mantiene la defensa fuertemente. Qué lindo, definitivo.
Qué buena.
Pero se muere de todas formas. Va a caer Asmita. Puede caer el Fenrir también. Qué mal posicionamiento por parte de Fariña. Y es castigado en manos de Joel. Linda doble kill por parte de lo que viene siendo el mid laner del equipo de los Lille. Quedó totalmente solar y Asmita no lo van a ir a buscar. Mientras tanto, aprovecha el equipo de Lorena a empezar a limpiar día 1 al equipo rival. Va a caer el titán. Se viene un 23-12 a favor del equipo del Orden. Linda partida. Les costó al principio al equipo de los Lille, pero se siguen manteniendo en la punta, Dani.
It's so enjoyable to listen to.
Los Lille campeones de este
Again, shout out to Smite and the Sewer for being able to cast LATAM and Brazil. They did off-air as well. You were talking about in this week in Smite 2. But one thing I noticed, and the reason that I brought that clip in particular, while it was Brazil, but it had Los Lille. I keep mentioning as Los Lille as this team that we're probably going to see be one of the teams attempt to play in for LAN and that we might see really go far. And that's one of the better looks we've seen at their team fight. And it kind of reminded me in a way of how Scrumptious has been fighting at that very chaotic style, but it was almost controlled chaos. I was watching the Morgan a lot in that fight. I watched the Fenrir kind of disengage, then blink back to peel for the Morgan. And when I was talking to Decoy from Los Lille last week, Decoy was telling me their comms are really calm. Everybody's always really chill. There's nothing, nobody gets excited, nobody gets crazy, and it lets them control team fights and moments like that. So stuff like that, Los Lille, I think they could do okay. I think it really depends, once they know they're a team competing, how they prepare. I mentioned last week they've been playing North American ranked. They might need to find some scrims with North American teams, even on ping, just to kind of get that extra leg up, because I think they're on the cusp. I would probably compare them to like a Gars Goblins right now, but the problem is they're going to go up against some really, really good teams, and they've got to, both Los Lille and whoever that second team ends up being, or, you know, could be Los Lille out as well, they've just got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, and it's really, I think, impressive. And like you said, with a couple of weeks left before playoffs are kicking off, I'm kind of curious to see what some of the other teams maybe have to try and spice things up and some of those reasons. Because I feel like, well, especially now that Los Lille is played in 2 and topped 2 different regions. Yep. Yeah, somebody, I'm putting a target on their back. Somebody take them down.
Yeah, and one thing I like too is it's so many players that we're unfamiliar with from the previous seasons of SPL, where we might have been curious that we'd see some familiar names hop in. And Los Lille, I really do hope they go far, just in the sense of seeing some different play brought, what they can bring that's a bit more unique. It's been fun to keep up with and fun to cover. But all right, or I had my fun.
You're right.
My
I'm gonna sit back for this one. We're just
so okay. I love APAC. Okay, I love Smite OCL. They've been putting in really great work. They're great people. I love working with them, talking with them.
I feel like there's like a butt coming up.
I wake up. I wake up to, because they made me a channel to help me with the recap, where they put clips, they put information, stuff I could never know researching on my own, and they're fantastic for that. I wake up and I look in it one day, and it's like a picture of a spreadsheet, and there's I forget if it's 17 or 27, and it's a bunch of teams. It says disbanded, reorganized, poached. I'm like, what am I looking at? They had a roster apocalypse. It was significant. I mean, I'll read it straight from my notes. So in the finals, we ended up seeing, or not in the finals, we ended up seeing 99% engaged versus Drinker Drunk. 99% engaged is a name that keeps coming up because they made it all their way to finals in week 4 from roster changes that were really impactful. Teams like Goblins, they broke up. The Trialed, they broke up. And all these different teams started poaching players and grabbing players, which instantly caused drama. We've all seen the SPL roster apocalypse. It was the same vibes. It was, hey, that was my jungler. Well, that's my ADC. You took my mid laner. It was that, but up to 10 with really loud accents. at one point talking to them in a call, I was like, look, you guys got to calm this down. I'm going to send in the emus, get things under control. But it's been chaotic. But how does that actually work out in their play? Because they've got playoffs around the corner, which is a crazy, crazy time to actually sit there and do a roster apocalypse, change everything up. But APAC did it. And for the first clip, it's actually an example of how the team fighting's been playing out. It's a 3-man Mordred ult. It's a clean team fight from APAC, some good casts, and the usual I've been bringing with APAC. But Fish and Sunday School did meet up again. They met up in semifinals. If you've been following that trajectory, that drama between the two teams, the bracket worked out to semifinals this time through, and Sunday School... Diceheart is saying it best, but Sunday School is just still doing Sunday School things. Like, we talk about how cool it's going to be to see the LATAM teams, and I'll say this every time because I genuinely would love to see it. I would love to see what Sunday School could do up against some of the top teams in other regions, including LATAM, Brazil. Just the way that they play has been so clean, so crisp. And for the roster apocalypse to go down, and for Sunday School to stand strong the way that they have, to me, and keep their roster, that's an extra layer of impressive, I think.
Tilly is able to do to the Titan. It's already gone to Vayne, and Sunday School have
it's already gone. Yep.
Now I've got to ask,
from their
and this is for me. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. Did Fish make it through the roster apocalypse unscathed, or did they?
Let me take a look. I have
this is important to my own investment.
I have
more
my
than
sheet super accessible. Let's see. I don't see Fish on here of any names mentioned, so it looks like Fish did make it through the roster apocalypse. SMITEpro's had a lot. Apes Together had a lot. Raven Guard had one. Project Expendables had a ton. The Trial disbanded outright. They became, in some ways, 99% engaged. So there was a lot of changes, but Fish and Sunday School made it through. So Fish,
which kind of makes sense.
And also, before we go to next clip, I have to bring this up to you guys because I was told to get some input, and we can get some later too once we bring the other guys on. Platinum Pete, they changed their name to whatever rank they are. Diamond's up next. They're feeling good in their rank grind. We got to think of ideas. Could be Diamond Dave.
Oh,
but they're
I was going to say Diamond Pete doesn't sound the same. I wouldn't want Diamond Dave or Diamond Pete.
I said Clay Clayton at one point. So yeah, it's up to us to come up with names. So workshop that. We'll touch back before we.
Trelly, you've got homework.
I'm on it.
I knew Trelly would be one of the ones on it.
Diamond Douglas.
But, Diamond Douglas. I like that. I did bring one more clip, and shout out to APAC. Again, you can see them really early Sunday morning if you're an Eastern time zone viewer, if you're used to checking out NA games. They stream around 4 a.m. Eastern on SMITE game, but their production quality has been fantastic. Their casters are doing great. I know they're putting in the work too, but sometimes you don't need the casters to fully tell the story. Sometimes you can go to something really cool, like a comms listen-in. So we get to hear some comms from APAC in this next clip, which I think is just so cool. I think
we're going to take a listen in to Sunday School's comms once again to see how this fight breaks out from them.
Award. I'm warding
listen to the read here too. This is crazy.
I'm playing off Lake Yacht with Mushroom here, guys.
There's a ward on it. I'm getting it.
I'm here.
Yeah, ward behind the wall.
Careful, they like to have a random group as well.
Yeah,
I'm
I got a fat ult as well.
There you go. Nice. No one behind us still. No one in the back.
Jingwei.
I'm
ready.
Lucky no ult. No, lucky no ult.
I'm low.
Nice.
Jing beats.
Guys, go. Just win. Lucky, watch out. He's behind us.
Yeah. Can we just walk in the mid?
Yeah, if he comes to mid,
just win with mid wave. 30 seconds on Baron. Lucky no ult.
How long a mushroom?
Cool. The call
35.
is crazy too.
Doesn't matter. Game will already be over.
The call of they could be randomly grouped here. Look out. Has been radiating, and the casters talk about here. It's like the call heard round the APAC Discord. It's been insane, the reactions to it. It stirred up controversy. It stirred up hurt feelings. It stirred up hype. You name it, it came up off of that particular moment. And again, shout out to the production team at APAC because having a comms listen in an exciting moment like that was really cool.
Yeah,
I know,
that's huge.
I think JMac woke up around the same time as me, and we both tuned into the stream at the same time, right as they played that clip. And I know we were both like, "Whoa! Was that comms?" They've been doing great over there.
Yeah, and the thing that really stood out to me, and it's really interesting because we haven't gotten this in a little while, but the caliber and I'm gonna say the calmness of just No, they're not going to be back. Like just end.
And remember, that's Sunday School is a team that's being coached by Sharks as well.
That makes a lot more sense.
You can hear a lot of the coaching in their comms too.
I mean, you can even hear at one point before that fight starts to break out, you can hear, guys, be ready for a fight. I think they have a ward behind that wall. As they pan over, you see it just sitting there. It's like these guys are fully aware of what's about to be happening. So that was just a really common. And he's right. I tuned in like maybe 30 seconds before that started. I'm like, oh, cool. It's like grand finals. I can watch the at the end of the game. And it's just like, we're going to throw to comms. I'm like, whoa, hold on. We're getting comms here? Like, what's going on? And it jumps in. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun watching these guys. So I'm excited to see what APAC still has in store for them.
Especially as we get to like playoffs and stuff, because that's like, I mean, I guess there's still one more week to be played.
Have week 5 coming up. I'm sitting down with them again. For those who saw the short interview and talk I did with a couple of the casters from SMITE OCL. I'm doing another one of those coming up as they prep for their actual playoffs to sort of get like basically a viewer's guide to your first time watching APAC for the playoffs. So hopefully that'll be exciting and helpful, and we'll have some more information there too.
Yeah, that's the good news. So this week, again, for these two bozos, their regions are week 5 Swiss that we're watching. There is also week 5, I guess, well, for an open bracket that's still going on.
Yep.
And then week 5 for all the other regions still closing out. And then next week, while, I guess, what would we call it? The Vegas Founders Series portion moves to the last chance qualifiers. All of the other Founders Series and the regions that Malum has covered here are going to be moving into their playoffs, right? So they're all going to have its cash prizing for Brazil and APAC. LATAM has that opportunity to come to LAN. So I'm excited for a lot of the just what's to come, which I guess I think I've been saying every single week, but it's because every single week stays exciting, as it turns out. I think, Malum, I let you have, you know what, we'll just do everybody. Charlie, final thoughts, last things?
I mean, hey, well, you have the benefit of being able to see every elimination and promotion match this weekend, so no excuses to miss the bangers.
No excuses to miss the bangers. J-Mac, final thoughts?
It's all 2-2s. This is where it really counts for some of these teams. You want to take a couple of weeks off to kind of watch the competition, see how the meta develops. Bring your A game this week. Otherwise, you're going to be having to play at your A game for the next couple of weeks to make it to playoffs.
Yeah, good luck from there. Malum, final thoughts?
I'm on upset watch for Borscht and Mr. Playbyplay. I think there's a world where if Borscht have any lapses in judgment like what J-Mac was talking about, I think Mr. Playbyplay's got a roster that can do it. I think if they play around Snatty and Lairs good enough, I think they have a chance. And of course, we have to name Platinum Pete for Diamond.
Right. I had Diamond Douglas. Diamond Douglas pretty good too. Not a lot of good D names. I mean, Dave, like, that's so overrated.
So true.
So Dave's out there.
Diamond. Although Diamond Dawson could be a fire name to be running around APAC.
That guy does not need a team named after him. Hold on. Let me be clear right now. I'm shutting that one down instantly. And my final thoughts, guess what, are going to be that you should tune in this weekend and have a lot of fun watching. Again, you can see things like on the D-Lo where they're doing some of the other regions or some of the backup games. There are no backup games this week. So some of the other regions, realistically. Of course, what was it, 4:30 a.m. Eastern or real people time if you're actually an AEST to be able to watch the APAC games that are going on. And then as a friendly reminder, 11 a.m. Eastern Saturday is when we are starting. 1 p.m. Eastern Sunday is when we are kicking off. So you just, like, what'd you say? You want to be there or you're a loser?
Or be there or be equilateral,
quadrilateral. But from myself, from these three, everyone back in production is everyone at High Res Studios. Thank you so much for tuning in here to Smite Too Long Didn't Watch, and we'll see you tomorrow for the Founders Series.
Made in Georgia.